Hello everyone, I am Mahak Malviya, Assistant Professor of Forensic Science at Sage School of Sciences at Sage University, Bhopal. Today, we are going to study about crime scene sketching. To understand crime scene sketching, first we need to understand that what is crime scene. It is a place where certain illegal act or crime has taken place. Crime scene investigation involves locating, collecting, and interpreting evidence found at the crime scene of a crime. To do this, forensic expert or forensic specialists are necessary. Often, a special unit of forensic technician enters a crime scene to properly perform the collection, documentation, and preservation of evidences such as blood, fingerprints, etc. There are proper procedures and protocols involved in processing a crime scene. One of the most important of these is documenting the crime scene. Such a process involves photography, taking notes and reports, sketches, measurements, and recording names of the people in charge of collecting evidences and the date and time those people were present. In many cases, poor scene documentation can lead to the inadmissibility of the evidence in the court of law, or missed evidence may allow a guilty party to get away with a crime against person or property. Scene sketch is correctly measured and accurately locating of the evidence with reference to each other. Sketches are used along with the report and photographs for the documentation of the crime scene. It does not have to be an architectural drawing made to a scale, however, it must include exact measurements where needed. Now, the question that arises in our mind is why sketching is better if we have photography and videography as a new technological tools. It can cover a large area. It corroborates with the photographs and videos taken for the scene. Videos and photos may tend to distort the dimensions of the crime scene, which does not happen in the case of proper sketch. Portray the crime scene in a more detailed manner. Its distance between objects can clearly be calculated. They are able to show the entire crime scene at once. It accurately portrays the physical facts. It relates to the sequence of the events at the scene. It establishes the precise location and relationship of the objects and evidence at the scene. It helps to create a mental picture of the scene for those not present. It is a present record and a permanent record for the crime scene. It usually is admissible in court. It assists in interviewing and interrogating. It assists in preparing the writing investigative report. And last but not the least, it assists in presenting the case in the court. There are two types of sketches that are made. Number one is the rough sketch. Rough sketches are developed while on scene, typically during the crime scene assessment or preliminary scene evaluation phase to assist with development of a strategic plan for processing. The sketch is not done to scale, can be drawn with any implement, and is very roughly artistically. As work progresses at the crime scene, the sketch will include not only the crude crime scene layout but also will be used to record measurements of items and structures and distance between items. Number two is the finished sketch. It is the rendition of the rough sketch. They are usually prepared from courtroom presentation and often will not show all measurements and distances originally recorded on the rough sketch. Only significant items and structures are typically present within a final sketch. A final sketch is produced in either ink or on a computer in a manner that it is not able to be modified. The sketch should be clutter-free and should accurately depict all pertinent items of evidence, typically through the use of the accompanying legend. Now, let's talk about the crime scene mapping. It is the term associated with crime scene measurement. Sometimes a person may sketch but not map, meaning that he or she draws a sketch of an area but does not apply measurements to the sketch produced and items represented. There are basically three types of mapping methods utilized for crime scene sketching and mapping. Number one is the rectangular or coordinating mapping. The rectangular or coordinate mapping method is a slightly more accurate variation of the baseline method because it utilizes two such baselines instead of one. Two measurements are taken to a point on an item or locating at the scene, one from each identified baseline. Some personnel choose to measure two or more points on an item using multiple rectangular measurements as a way of increasing accuracy, while others simply choose to measure to an arbitrarily identified center mass of the object in question or point to which the measurement are being taken. As with the baseline method, it cannot be determined that such measurements are taken precisely at 90-degree angles from the baseline, so there exists a greater possibility of error than with some of the other methods. However, due to this having two measurements, it has much greater accuracy with the single line baseline method. This method is especially useful in confined spaces and smaller interior scenes. Number two is the baseline mapping. This is the most basic and least accurate form of crime scene mapping. For this method, a baseline is developed or identified from which to conduct measurement. This can be existing area such as the edge of the roadway, a wall, a fence, etc. Or it can be developed by personnel such as by placing a string or tape measure through the scene and conducting measurement from there. In the case of the latter, the line should be run between two known fixed points such as the tree or the identified points so that the point could be found in the future and the scene reconstructed if necessary. Once the baseline is established, measurements are taken from the baseline at an approximate 90-degree angle for the baseline to a point on the identified item or area of the crime scene. Typically, most measurements are made either to the center mass of the item or to the nearest point of the item to the baseline. Because it is impossible to ensure that the measurements were taken at 90 degrees and the possibility exists that the measurement will no longer be the measurements was over 90-degree from the baseline, or if it is way less than 90-degree from the baseline. For this reason, the method is not as accurate as some of the other methods. However, it is quick and extremely easy to use. Then the third is the triangulation mapping. This is the most accurate method that does not make use of advanced technology. While it is quite a bit more laborious and time consuming, it is sufficiently more accurate than the aforementioned methods of mapping to be worth the effort. The accuracy of this method comes in the foundation from two fixed points. From these two fixed points, measurements are taken to specified points on an item or within the crime scene. There is no need to worry about whether or not measurements have been made at the right angle because the points derive from the known fixed points such as the corner of the room or edge of the door frame. From these fixed points, a minimum of two measurements are made to each identified point. If the object is of a fixed or constant shape, then the object is measured to 2 points from the fixed points for a total of the 4 measurements. If the objective is of a variable shape or size, then the object is measured to an approximate center of the mass. Now, there are some points to remember while sketching a crime scene. Do not attempt to draw an object as it appears. Use symbols instead. Use lettered or numbered squares, circles, figures, or points to represent various objects in the sketch. Explain in the diagram key what these objects represent. If photography markers are used, ensure they correspond to same object in the sketch. For example, if photo marker number 5 is used to mark the handgun, make sure the handgun in the sketch is also labeled number 5. Label all doors and windows. Show with a curved line which way the door swings. Use an arrow to show the direction of the stairways. Use jagged lines to cut off necessary heights and lengths. Mark the north direction at the top right corner of the sketch. This is the layout of the fair sketch, how the fair sketch should be, and where the details related to the case and the diagram key should be placed in a sketch. This is the rough sketch and this is the fair sketch that I have prepared. I hope you have understood the content. In the next lecture, I will teach about how to draw the mentioned above rough sketch and fair sketches with proper measurements and calculations. For now, thank you for tuning in and have a nice day.